Hey everyone, Voodoo here. So in today's video, I kind of just want to talk about my experiences in Season 2 so far, what my thoughts are on Havoc Demon Hunter. It's going to be a bit more one of those dooming videos talking about what's wrong with Havoc and how we're not getting any buffs or any fixes, but that out of the way, let's get into it. So let's talk about Raid first. So I've been a Havoc player for a while now. I've been playing Havoc. Well, Havoc was my first class actually ever. I started back in Legion. Havoc was my first spec I ever played. Took a bit of a break, came back, didn't play Havoc, and then have been playing Havoc solidly now for the past about 2 years. 1 year since a bit through Shadowlands. So I've been playing Havoc for a while, for a good bit now as my main, doing Raid M+. And I don't know, I gotta say, Havoc right now is just, it's not feeling that great. It's also not doing that well. I think in M+ we're very fine. I think in M+, a lot of the issues that raiding has are a little different, but we'll get there. I think in raiding, it's just, playing Havoc feels very demoralizing. Very unrewarding, right? So we'll jump into it. So first off, before we get into it, if you like content and stuff, I'll have tons of WoW content. I'm going to branch out, not just do Havoc stuff, but Havoc is the main focus still. So, drop a comment, drop a like, help support the video, and also hit the sub button. Now let's get into it. So Raid. So if we look at Warcraft logs right now, we look at all the classes and everything, we can see that Havoc is towards the bottom. Now, if you sort this by classes, I think only Monk is below us in terms of DPS specs. Havoc, I think, is the second lowest, just in terms of pure. Now, there are classes below it, like Feral, the Hunter specs maybe, like Enhancement Shaman sometimes. But those specs do have other options to swap to. Havoc, Windwalker, Ret, things like that, Shadow Priest. They don't have other options, right? So if their one DPS spec is bad, there's not a ton of other options you have to swap to. You can't just swap to Vengeance and DPS, right? Like that doesn't work. Like a Havoc player can't just swap to an unreleased third spec and DPS, you know what I mean? So in terms of that, it's very demoralizing to see us so low. Like you'd think we sim good, we sim very highly. But one of the things with Havoc is just how bad our damage gets if we lose uptime. Like one missed global every minute is roughly 1.6% of our damage lost, and it goes up higher and higher the more globals you miss. Miss 3 a minute, it's like almost 5,000 DPS lost, which is a ton. So that's one of those things where it's like, oh, you're playing in Raid, you're doing momentum, all that stuff just ends up leading to Havoc dropping low and not actually performing that well. We were talking about this new build coming into this batch. That build doesn't even perform that well due to uptime. Also just kind of sucks to play. So right now, Havoc's in a situation where it hasn't changed much since the launch of Dragonflight. We've been doing the same thing over and over and over, and that thing we're doing isn't even that rewarding whenever it happens, right? The juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I think a lot of that comes down to just our tree. There's lots of issues with it. The middle of the tree is problematic with Cycle of Hatred, Shattered Destiny, basically making Demonic like a maintenance buff. Something you got to keep the uptime on all the time, or else it's not very good. The left side of the tree, Momentum, has a ton of issues. I think it's pretty fun, but we're doing Momentum so often. It's one of those buffs where it's really high uptime, really low impact. So you're having to Fell Rush, you're having to Vengeful Retreat, you're having to do all these things that alter your rotation very significantly, causing you to, move around so much during combat. You have to be so aware of everything around you. It can even hurt your wrists sometimes. You're doing this 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a week while raiding, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depends what you're doing, 6 hours maybe, but between 6 and 12 hours, I'd say, is the average people play for a week in raids, and you're doing that just day in, day out, just being basically on the whole time, and it gets tiring, it gets exhausting for doing this for so long. And while you're doing this, you're doing all these things, you're like doing trigonometry basically, seeing where you can Fell Rush that's safe, seeing where you can VR while maintaining uptime, Fell Rushing while maintaining uptime, Fell Rushing around mechanics, VRing around mechanics, trying to maintain uptime, because if you lose uptime, you lose damage. Losing damage feels bad. All the while you're doing all these things, it's like that meme with the guy sweating, just slamming buttons, and you're like 10th, 9th DPS, right? And you're 100 parsing, and you're being beaten by a blue parsing warlock. You know what I mean? It's those kind of things that makes you just be like, why am I doing this? Why am I playing this class that's tiring? It's tired. It's been around forever. That dragon flew through the floor. Did anyone else see that? The dragon just flew straight up through the tower. Wait, where was it? Anyway, so like you're doing all these things, you're doing all these different tasks and everything like that. So much movement, so much disruptive movement. and then you're not even doing that much DPS, right? Now, I'm not saying Havoc should be the best spec in the game, but I'm saying we should be at least competitive. We don't have an option. I think Windwalker should be as well. And yes, we're kind of like that AoE burst cleave spec, but if you look at M+, we're not even that high in representation. Now, we can do some solid damage in M+. I'm not saying we're bad or anything there. But overall, it feels like Havoc just doesn't have that that ability to be fun and engaging for a long time. Like, it just feels tired. It feels like we need something else. And we feel like we need damage buffs. We're doing the same board, old rotation for like no damage. And, you know, the fights in this raid don't help. They're very downtime. Like, there's lots of downtime. Scarn, for example, that dragon just did it again. He flew to the floor. Anyways, Scarn, for example, the fight we're on, I'm on proccing currently. We've almost killed it, hopefully. And then we can move on to other fights. But there's just so much random RNG and downtime with traps, with knockbacks, golems. You got to prio. We only have 1 DK, so you know, there's just lots of things that force you out of melee. You know, the bleeds on Forgotten Experiments, the slams on Rashok, the soaks on Rashok, stuff on Echo as well. Sark going downstairs. There's just so many things that force your downtime. That's just really bad for the current iteration of Havoc. But it's not like we can play other builds, right? Because this one build with Cycle is just so powerful. Cycle momentum. I do think those are kind of like the biggest issues with Havoc. Just kind of the playstyle and the tree are just tired and boring. It's been the same thing for a while. Most of the player base is done with it. Now, there are tons of people who still enjoy it. I enjoy it sometimes, but just playing it on Ziskarn recently has kind of like hit me like, you know, we have to move to do a fifth, not even a fifth, but we have to move to do like 80% of the damage of like the top specs, right? Like, there's a Devoker who's just, you know, all the way to the 25-yard range, whatever, who's just slamming, doing way more damage than we could ever hope to hit. Shadow Priests are pumping, and Warlocks are pumping. They can just stand still, you know? Fury Warriors can stand still. Bro, this dragon, man. But, I don't know. Like, it's just tiring. Your wrist's starting to hurt. You're getting bored. So I really hope something comes through for Havoc. Maybe we get some buffs in 10.1.7. It's not looking like anything's going to happen in 10.1.5. So I do think that Havoc and Raid right now is just kind of disappointing. And I think that sucks. I do think this patch is really good. Aside from like 2 bosses, the Skarn, I think, is terrible. And then Magmarax is just a letdown. I think everything else in the raid is just really like a good boss. It's really fun. And a lot of that enjoyment is just kind of sucking out because Havoc in raid is just so poor, right? We don't do any damage. The things we have to do our bar damage are like really complex and tiring, and it's hard to focus on for like 3 hours, 4 hours a night. So I do hope something comes through. I do hope we get some changes. You know, it's also causing like a dip in viewership. Definitely noticed that go down. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Now, on M+ side of things, I actually am having a ton of fun in M+ this season. Now, I am having fun on other alts as well, not just Havoc. But I do think that just like the Fel Rushy style of things works a lot better in M+ than it does in Raid. There's a lot less, like, there's downtime between packs. You have the breaks of it. Most of the time, you know, there's not really, like, there are mechanics that hinder your uptime, hinder your where you can Fel Rush and stuff like that. But it's nowhere near as bad as, like, things in Raid are. And it's a lot easier. There's a lot more targets to hit as well, so you're not really hitting that downtime issue. You're not really having like as much of like a Fel Rush awareness thing. Now, we're not meta. I think we're like the 7th most represented DPS. We're representing roughly like 5% of the DPS meta, which isn't that big of a share. Shadow Priest is like 24, which is kind of crazy. But I think in M+ we're fine. You know, we bring magic debuff. We'd be better if Vengeance wasn't so good right now. Vengeance is like the highest DPS tank, which is obviously pushing our representation down. That's just what happens when you have things like that. Magic buff is in a good spot. I do think maybe it wouldn't be too crazy to give us back Sigil of Silence. I don't think they'll ever do that. Sigil of Silence is a very powerful thing. AoE silences are very rare in this game. There's like, okay, there's more than 2. There's Ass Rogue, there's MMBM, there's Boomy, and there's Vengeance, so there's 5. I don't think it'd be that crazy for Havoc to bring it as well, considering all we get is an AoE stun, an Imprison, which isn't really useful in every single dungeon, and then Misery. But we use Misery for DPS for the most part, so you can't really rely on that for a stop. So I don't think it'd be too crazy to give us Silent Sigil back. Maybe give us a little bit more utility, have us maybe brought a little tiny bit more in keys, but I don't think in keys is like that big of an issue. I do think the biggest thing, though, is physical damage. We are so squishy now. The health changes and the fact that we didn't get a leech increase has really, really made me feel like much squishier than before. It doesn't help that it's almost impossible to take Netherwalk, although I don't even think Netherwalk would be, like, it'd be useful. You could Netherwalk, immune, like, Kragmaw's Rampage or Tantrum or whatever, and then just zoom around and get all the ticks. But like hard hitting physical abilities, if you don't have blur, and even sometimes if you do have blur, just feel like they truck you, and we just can't leech back like we used to because our HP is so much higher, but our damage and our leech coefficients were not changed, right? Leech was nerfed coming in, and it's a lot worse now than it used to be before. Am I still recording? Okay, I am. My computer just shut down because I was AFK. But as I was saying, you know, I don't know. So I think in M+ we're good damage-wise. I think we could use a survivability increase. Giving us another defensive could be nice. I know we have the passive magic thing, and then we have blur, but that's it. We don't have anything else. So giving us another thing will be fine, but I think in M+ we're okay. In raid, though, it just sucks. You know, I raided my Evoker as well. I've started raiding on Fury Warriors and their alt. And it's more fun, you know. I get to actually just vibe out, and it's just much more relaxed and calm. Havoc just feels like you're trying to spin and balance a bunch of plates all at once and just kind of zoop around to do damage. And it gets tiring doing that for so long. I still love Havoc. Havoc's my favorite spec in the game, but it's tiring, and I'm a little tired of it. And, you know, hopefully things change. Hopefully stuff comes in the future. That's going to be it for today, though. A quick little video. Hoping to have a nice video out for you guys on Friday. Not fully sure which one it will be, but the next few weeks should be pretty good for content. I have a lot of cool projects in the work. So if you're appreciating that, you know, hit a comment, drop a like as well, and consider being a sub to the channel. Help me grow. We're almost at 6,000. If you enjoy the content as well, you can become a channel member. Channel memberships, you can have, you know, direct shape of the channel. I will, you know, listen to your feedback really highly as well. You get a ton of cool perks as well. Exclusive videos. There should be one coming out this week sometime. You get exclusive things like emotes and stuff like that. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed today. I hope you guys enjoyed this little discussion of how I've just been vibing with Havoc. And I'll see you guys next time. So peace. A big thank you to my channel members 121, Payne, Zach Ward, It's Bulk, and Flapjack67. You guys are amazing and help me to put out this content that I do for all you guys. If you want to become a channel member, there's a link in the description. You get access to a ton of cool perks, exclusive emotes for comments and live chat whenever I stream on YouTube, as well as a ton of other things, and just get to help me make better content. Once again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time. Peace.